All right, next question is a group of questions. They come from Carl Mascarenas and Donnie Ahrens. So these are 3 questions, but all very similar, so we're going to group them together. So Carl says, my plugs on my Axiom keep on falling out. How do I keep them in? I press on them, but the ammo, the steel balls, fall out as well. Donnie says, why do I keep losing plugs in my Ocularis? And he also says, why do I keep knocking the bearings out of my slingshot? All right, so the simple answer here, unfortunately, is simply user error. You're not understanding how they work. So when you install the bands and the plugs as designed, they do not come out. So first, let's start with the bearings. So the bearings really only need to go in there one time. You don't necessarily need to take the bearings out every time you install the bands. There's 2 routes we can go here. I'm going to show you first putting the bands on with the bearings already installed. So when it comes, you've got the plugs and the bearings. And if you'll look down inside the plug, you'll see a slight ring in there. You want to get it at least into the middle. A lot of folks will simply push it in that far to where it's just proud and call it good enough. And that generally does work. But you want to get down there just a little further. So a couple of tools you can use. So you can use a pencil with an eraser and push it in. But you want to just make sure you push that in there and get it in there about halfway through. And you'll know that you're in there correctly when you can look at the edge of the wall of the plug and see that little hump. That's what you're looking for. Now that plug is not, that bearing is not going to come out of here. It is absolutely not going to come out unless you push it. So one of the reasons that your bearing is coming out is you've simply not installed it deep enough into the plug. So I'm going to go ahead and do this other one here. And you can do this with your fingers, or you can use a tool. Pins work well. You can just use the concave end of the pin, push that down in there. All right, that one's ready to go. All right, now the next one is one of my plugs come out. Now the plugs are coming out of the slingshot for 2 reasons. The most common reason is folks are putting them on the wrong side of the slingshot. That's a surefire way for them to come out. And if they fly away from you, then you know you've put them on the wrong side of the slingshot. So the Axiom Ocularis has 2 sides, 2 very distinct sides. The side with the Simple Shot logo and the finger pads, that's what we're going to call the shooter side. That's you. That's what faces you, the shooter. So when you're holding it, that's your orientation. So this is the shooter side of the slingshot. The other side of the slingshot, we can see back here where it says Made in the USA and always wear eye protection. That is the target side of the slingshot. So shooter side of the slingshot, target side of the slingshot. When you're installing flat bands, the plug always goes on the shooter side of the slingshot. The side facing you, the side that you can see. If you're putting it on the other side of the slingshot, it's just not going to work. Now here's what we got to do. So when we install the bands, we're going to install these bands in the over-the-top configuration. So we're going to place the slingshot on the table, target side up. We're going to put the bands on the table, ammo side of the pouch up, which is the fuzzy side of the pouch. We're going to insert the band from the target side of the slingshot to the shooter side of the slingshot. We're going to bring through enough tag end. I like about 1/4 inch. If you want to use a reference point, the thickness of the slingshot is 1/2 inch. So you can go as far as 1/2 inch, but you want to cover at least half the fork tip and fold that back over. So now we're looking at the shooter side of the slingshot. This is the side of the slingshot that the plug will install. So in the over-the-top configuration, you will see that we've got it on the top of the prong. You'll see a little slot on the plug. You can either use this face or the one opposite to it to go against the band itself. So from there, you press this in as far as you can with your thumb, and you can massage it in. You really got to work it in there. And you'll notice it's not all the way in because it's not installed completely yet. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to push from the shooter side as you pull the band from the target side, and that's going to seat the band. And as you pull that band, you will feel the plug seat into place. It will fully seat. And we're going to do the same thing on the other side. So again, we've got the slingshot with the target side facing up. We've got the fuzzy side of the ammo pouch facing up. We're going to set up the orientation the same way. All right, we've got it partially in. We still got a ways to go. We're going to pull as we massage it in and work it into place. Now we're fully engaged. Now, the way that Ocularis system works, it utilizes friction and tension to hold the plugs into place. So as the bands come over the top, hence the over the top configuration, they are essentially pulling against these plugs, trying to pull them through to the target side of the slingshot. In doing so, locking the bands deeper into place. When they're installed this way, they cannot fall out while shooting. If you're placing the bands on the opposite side, you're actually pulling the bands out with every tug. Let me demonstrate this for you. So here we have the band set up. The bands come through to the shooter side. I'm going to take off this plug, leave the band where it was, and install the plug. Now what this is going to show you, so certainly we could shoot like this. And when they're installed correctly, you're probably not going to pull that through. Not likely to. Because it's installed correctly, it's flush fit. But if you install the plugs incorrectly both ways, meaning you install them on the wrong side of the slingshot, and you don't stretch the band to seat the plug, it's going to pop out. All of the forces upon release are moving this direction, slowly pulling against this plug. Once you get that first fork hit, it'll pop right out, and there went your plug. Now, you both had problems with your bearings coming out and your plugs coming out. We've sorted the bearings. Push them down in there deeper. They will not come out if they're all the way in. If your plugs are coming out while you're shooting, we've defined two potential problems. One, that you're not seating the plug all the way in to the shooter side of the slingshot when shooting flat bands. And two, you may be installing the plug on the target side of the slingshot. So really take some time to look at the forces that are going on here, where tension is applied in the system. And if it appears as though your bands are pulling the plug out, you can be sure that you're doing it wrong. We've got lots of tutorial videos on how to do this. Be sure to check them out and watch through this video. This is not uncommon. This is the reason we put these three questions together. A lot of folks get this wrong. That's why it's really important to read the instructions, get familiar with it. This is a different type of way of attaching slingshot bands, and it does require you to pay a bit of attention to the instructions. And for that, you'll be a smarter person and having a whole lot more fun with your slingshot. Thanks for that question.